Honourable Senators, I received a notice from the facilitator of the Independent Senators Group who requests, pursuant to Rule 4-31, that the time provided for the consideration of Senators' statements be extended today for the purpose of paying tribute to the Honourable Senator Dasko. Is it agreed that the time for tributes be extended into regular statements until the conclusion of the anticipated tributes? Is it agreed? It is agreed, and I remind senators that pursuant to our rules, each senator will be allowed only 3 minutes and they may speak only once, and these times do not include the time allotted to the response of the senator. Sénatrice Moncion.
Madame la Présidente,
Madam Speaker, honorable colleagues.
Independent Senators Group, it is my pleasure to pay tribute to our colleague and friend, Senator Dasko, as she prepares to retire from the Senate of Canada. Since her appointment in 2018, Senator Dasko has brought to this chamber an extraordinary combination of intellect, integrity, and public service. Throughout her distinguished career as one of Canada's leading public opinion researchers, she helped Canadians better understand themselves and the issues shaping our country. In the Senate, she continued that work with the same rigor and commitment to evidence-based decision-making. Senator Dasko has been a thoughtful and influential voice in matters ranging from democratic institution and public policy to gender equality and social inclusion. Since co-founding the not-for-profit Equal Voice in 2001, she has helped to energize a generation of women to get involved in public life and elected to Parliament. Within the Independent Senators Group, Donna has been a valued colleague whose wisdom and generosity have enriched our work and contributed enormously to a more modern and independent Senate. She's always been willing to share her expertise and contribute constructively to the deliberation that make this institution stronger. What stands out most, however, is the spirit with which she has approached her responsibilities. She has demonstrated that public service is at its best when it is guided by principle, informed by evidence, and carried out with humility and respect. Senator Dasko, as you conclude your time in the Senate, we thank you for your many contributions to this institution and to Canada. Your legacy will endure in the debates you have shaped and the policies you have improved. Your work has set an example for all of us and will continue to resonate in the growing presence and impact of women in politics across Canada. Beyond your remarkable accomplishments, we will also remember your good humor, your kind and considerate nature, and the warmth and positivity you brought to every room. Your laughter and joyful spirit made working with you not only meaningful, but truly enjoyable. We wish you every happiness and success in the next chapter of your life. May it be filled with good health and the satisfaction of knowing that you have served your country with distinction. You will be missed. Thank you.
Senator Moreau.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Fait de replacer le Sénat.
Updating the Senate means that we have a little less space, and we sure notice it when we stand up to speak.
The Government Representative's Office to pay tribute to our colleague, the Honourable Senator Dasko. From her research background to her polling works, we know Dr. Dasko likes numbers. Therefore, I thought it fitting to compile a few statistics to mark her time in the Senate. First nominated 2,926 days ago, Senator Dasko has risen 70 times to ask at the government a question, 42 times to deliver a speech on policy, and 23 times to mark special moments with a statement. Surveys are important tools of science, enabling us to cut through prejudice and prefabricated beliefs to gain a glimpse of the actual worldview of our fellow citizen. Senator Dasko brought her expertise to the Senate with the knowledge that the quality of our analysis was as important as the quality of our data. In this, Senator Dasko was exemplary in how she used samples of public opinion to inform her work without letting herself be defeated by an initial grumpy response, nor be blinded by the volatility of popularity. When Senator Dasko wields statistics, it is done with nuance, forethought, and understanding of their strengths and limitations. Through such intervention, Senator Dasko often reminded us that we have a duty to preserve freedom in the world and to stand alongside Ukrainians as they fight for their sovereignty. Likewise, from junk food to nicotine to the regulation of our media, Senator Dasko firmly believed that given the right information, Canadians would make the right choices. As a result of her sustained advocacy, Canadians can now make better choices at the grocery store with new labels outlining potentially harmful contents, and news outlets compete on a more even playing field. In her first speech on legislation, Senator Dasko noted that, quote, institutions can provide comfort and stability for many. For others, they can represent a life of unhappiness and entrapment. This personifies Senator Dasko's work here in the Senate, where she has pushed not just her colleagues, but the institution as a whole to better serve all Canadians. Accordingly, she turned her attention towards Parliament as she co-founded Equal Voices. At the time, in 2001, women made up 20% of MPs and 33% of senators. 25 years later, they now make up 31% of the other side and 56% of the Senate. 12 women have also become premier. Senator Dasko's advocacy for women in politics will carry on shaping generations to come as women propelled by her work continue to bring their own contributions to our society. As a final note, it would be important to highlight a statistic of Senator Dasko that would render bashful to most confident among us. This may even be underestimated, but in addition to her parliamentary duties, Senator Dasko was volunteering with 6 organizations. After long days of work, however exhausted, Senator Dasko would show up to meetings, happy to provide insights and support for important causes. Senator Dasko, I wish you the best in retirement, and I hope that as you enjoy restful afternoons sipping on a drink with a clear health label on it, that the only statistics you continue to track are those of your tennis matches. Thank you.
Senator Rousakos.
Honourable Senators, I rise today to pay tribute to our colleague and friend, Senator Donna Dasko, as she prepares to close this chapter in her career. Senator Dasko arrived to this chamber in 2018 as one of the country's most respected voices in public opinion, a respected business leader and a fierce advocate for women's representation as the co-founder of Equal Voice. She spent decades at the helm of Environics, tracking and analyzing major public policy shifts shaping our nation, and she brought that exact same reliance on data, facts, and rigorous research to our committee tables and to this floor every single day. She was fully equipped to bring her immense experience and her own deep convictions to the tapestry of different backgrounds, varying ideologies, and deeply held principles in this chamber. Now, it is no secret, honourable colleagues, to anyone, least of all to Senator Dasko herself, that she and I do not often see eye to eye on fundamental questions of public policy. We come from different philosophical schools, and I think it's fair to say that we spent the last 8 years trying to save the country from each other's ideas. But all joking aside, colleagues, we both have always believed that true public service isn't about uniform agreement. It's about the integrity of the debate. And that is exactly how Senator Dasko approached every issue in this chamber and at Transport and Communications, where I had the privilege to work very closely with her. Senator Dasko has proven herself to be an incredibly principled parliamentarian. You always know exactly where she stands, not because she is rigid, but because her positions are built on a solid foundation of rigorous research, sharp intellect, and unwavering commitment to public good. Even when we disagree on the fundamentals, I have always held the utmost respect for her principled stance and her commitment to this institution. And we did at times find some real common ground as well. For me, that was found in her vital work recently on Bill S-214. Her initiative to ensure that foreign states are held financially accountable by seizing and disposing of their assets is a testament to her foresight. It is precise, it is timely, and it is fiercely principled. And I think it was the absolute perfect way for her to close a wonderful career in this institution. Senator Dasko, the Senate is at its absolute best when it is filled with people who challenge us to be sharper, better prepared, and more focused on the evidence. You have certainly done that in your time here, and this institution is better for it. On behalf of the Conservative Senate Caucus, thank you for your service to Ontario, to the Senate, and to Canada. I wish you, your children, and your family the very best in the bright chapters that you have ahead. Thank you so much.
Senator Osler.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable colleagues, I rise today to pay tribute to Senator Donna Dasko, a colleague who has not only shaped legislation, but someone who has shaped legislators across our country. Senator Dasko has long been a prominent advocate of women's representation in politics. When the Prime Minister announced her appointment to the Senate on June 6, 2018, he heralded her as a sociologist, business leader, and one of Canada's best-known and respected pollsters. A strong advocate for gender equality, Dr. Dasko co-founded and served as the former National Chair of Equal Voice and helped launch the Campaign for an Equal Senate for Canada, end quote. The Campaign for an Equal Senate was a movement that started in 2015 with the goal of achieving gender parity in the Canadian Senate. In 2018, at the time of her appointment, women made up only 1/3 of the Senate. As we look around today, you see that women make up over half of this chamber. For Senator Dasko, gender parity is not merely a counting exercise, but a fundamental element of democracy. In a 2024 interview, she stated, "Our voices should be represented in our parliaments in proportion to our population. It's actually a principle of democracy, and democracy is in trouble in the world," end quote. One of her qualities that I admire most is her readiness to lend voice to important causes, with her advocacy for Ukraine being a clear example. As a proud third-generation Ukrainian Canadian, Senator Dasko has forged a commitment to Ukraine. She's a steadfast supporter who has returned to the issue time and again, ensuring that neither Parliament nor Canadians lose sight of the human consequence of the war in Ukraine. Her support is not performative, but is informed, sustained, and deeply sincere. That persistence reflects something larger about Senator Dasko's character. The Senate benefits enormously from members who bring expertise. It benefits even more from members who pair expertise with humility. And Senator Dasko does both. In closing, let me share with you a short story. Some time ago, I met someone who had encountered a Manitoba senator. They were, of course, very excited. When I asked which senator and ran down the list of those of us who represent Manitoba, they said, no, not them. I met Senator Donna Dasko. You see, Senator Dasko was born and raised in Manitoba. And even though she left for other places, I know a big piece of her heart remains in her hometown of Winnipeg. Senator Dasko, on behalf of your colleagues in the Canadian Senators Group, we wish you all the best in your retirement from the Senate. And as a fellow Manitoban, I truly hope we see you back home soon.
Senator Cardozo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is my pleasure to join in the tributes to Senator Donna Dasko and do so on behalf of the Progressive Centre Group. While I knew her work over many years, I asked to deliver this tribute because I've had the good fortune to become good friends during our time together here at the Senate. We have both worked together to advance issues of an independent Senate, the role of think tanks, a robust news media, democracy, and a number of things that Senator Husako, against a number of things that Senator Husako stands for. I've always appreciated, but in good spirit, Senator Husako, I've always appreciated her collaborative and welcoming style, her vast experience, and her evidence-based rigor. I particularly valued working with her on the Transport and Communications Committee, including on the issues of CBC Radio-Canada and local news. For the past 8 years and 4 days so far, Senator Dasko has served this country in the Senate, and before that through her lifetime of listening carefully to Canadians and providing deep sociological expertise to legislative review. For decades, when Canadians wanted to know about what Canada was thinking, they looked to Donna Dasko's work as the longtime Senior Vice President of Environics Research Group. In this chamber, as has been mentioned, she has spoken about gender equality in Canada and has been an unyielding champion of women's rights. She co-founded Equal Voice, dedicated to electing more women at all levels of political office in Canada. Whether pressing for gender-based analysis in budgeting or introducing bills to modernize national statistics in promoting women in Canadian politics, her Senate policy interventions are part of her outstanding legacy for equality. She cared deeply not only about what the Senate does, but about how Canadians understand and trust this institution. She recently commissioned a public opinion poll carried out by Nanos Research, which found that 79% of Canadians prefer the independent process for appointment of senators, compared to only 5% who wanted the return to the old partisan system. An important last nod of the reform of the last 10 years. Senator Dasko has used her voice to underscore the importance of defending Ukrainian sovereignty, strengthening Canada's humanitarian and military assistance, and sustaining sanctions against Russian aggression. I'm particularly pleased, colleagues, to tell you that she will co-sponsor with me and a few MPs Think Tank Day on the Hill in September, and she will be coming back for that. Donna, thank you for your decades of public service, your dedication to the truth, your tireless work for building a more equitable, inclusive, trustworthy, and democratic Canada. We wish you nothing but the best in your next career.
Senator Simons.
Question. How disappointed are you that Donna Dasko is retiring from the Senate? A, extremely disappointed. B, somewhat disappointed. C, neither disappointed nor delighted. D, somewhat philosophical. E, resigned and stoic. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all and 10 being a tremendous amount, how much will you miss Senator Dasko's charm, sharp analysis, intellectual enthusiasm, and sardonic sense of humor? The Oxford English Dictionary defines a pole star literally as the North Star, Polaris. But figuratively, the OED says a pole star is, quote, a person who serves as a guide, a governing principle, a guiding light, also a center of attention. And for the last 8 years, Donna Dasko has been not just our polling star, but our Senate of Canada poll star. She has been a moral beacon, whether she was advocating for Ukraine, advocating for more women to run for elected office, or advocating for an independent Senate, backed up by her latest polling data. She's been a guiding light on national security, the future of NATO, information privacy, and the protection of Canada's North. A center of attraction? Why, yes, that too. She is an indefatigable attender of conferences and receptions and parties. Whenever I'd go to an event with Donna, I was always amazed that she knew everyone and everyone knew her. I'd stand there awkward and self-conscious, inevitably fumbling my canapes and dripping food down my shirt, while she held court, connecting with everyone with grace and aplomb. When I was first appointed to the Senate, I never expected the depths of the friendships I would make here. But Donna Dasko, Julie Miville-Deschênes, and I quickly became the Three Musketeers. In her speech on C-48, way back in 2019, Donna noted that we had forged unshakable bonds of friendship during our committee travels to Prince Rupert and Terrace, BC. Those bonds only deepened in the ensuing years as our trio took long walks, debated public policy, and shared the fancy fries at Zoe's, where Donna always insisted we get our post-committee Wednesday night table right in the middle of the action, where we could see and be seen. But whether Donna and I were arguing over Canadian broadcast polity or rhapsodizing over our mutual love of Ukrainian food, we were never bored, and I trust never boring. Two prairie girls with Eastern European roots, one from Winnipeg and one from Edmonton, still not quite believing our good fortune at being asked to serve Canadians in this chamber. On a scale of 1 to 10, I will miss Donna about 100. Without her political courage, her dry wit, her incisive reason, her passionate commitment to equality, and her unerring ability to find the best parties, this chamber will be a far less interesting place.
Senator Wu.
Honourable colleagues, I join with others to pay tribute to Senator Dasko, who has a lifetime of contributions to equality rights, political participation, polling, and lawmaking. What is the thread that connects her life's work in these domains? Well, the obvious answer is that she is committed to social justice, democracy, and good governance, and has found multiple ways to advance these issues. But I think there's a deeper explanation that has to do with her training. Senator Dasko has a PhD in sociology and possesses that quality of thinking that the famous sociologist C. Wright Mills calls the sociological imagination. It is the capacity to distinguish between what Mills calls the troubles of individuals and the issues that face societies. Mills saw the potential of sociology as a discipline capable of imagining the future and foreshadowing it. That is our Donna Dasko, whose work on equality rights, especially the representation of women in politics, imagined a better future and not only foreshadowed it, but agitated to make it happen through Equal Voice, for which she was a co-founder. The sociologists in Senator Dasko could see the obstacles in the way of individual women who sought political office, as well as a collective problem of not having more women in politics. She became part of the solution when she was appointed to the upper house in 2018, at the time bringing the share of women in the Senate to a then record high of 45%. Even with gender parity in the Senate today, she is continuing to work on the foundations of equal representation through her bill S213, calling for more demographic information from the Chief Electoral Officer. Her legislative interests echo the thinking of Jürgen Habermas, another giant in sociology. He believed in the importance of the public sphere and the role of national debate in shaping public policy. If you ever wondered about Senator Dasko's fixation on leaders' debates in an election, the answer is a sociology training. Yet another famous sociologist, Anthony Giddens, once described polling as having a double hermeneutic. The first hermeneutic is the interpretation of the polling data, and the second is how the results of the poll can shape outcomes on that very issue. Senator Dasko not only understands the double hermeneutic, but she has, in her opinion polling on the Senate, added a third hermeneutic, which is the application of her own agency and political action in fostering a more independent Senate. If it weren't for her polling on public perceptions on the Senate, we would not know that in 2026, 79% of Canadians want future governments to continue to choose independent senators, or that for the first time in a decade of polling, positive impressions of the upper chamber outweigh negative views. It is the triple hermeneutic of Senator Dasko's work in the Senate that has in part contributed to the steady improvement in public perceptions of the upper house. I don't know when we will have another sociologist and pollster appointed to the Senate, but in Senator Dasko, we had someone who brought her expert training to the work of the upper house at the very time when changes to the Senate process allowed for those skills to be applied effectively. We will miss you, Donna, but you have taught us to have a sociological imagination, and we will do our best to live up to your example.
Okay.
Senator Coyle.
Honourable colleagues, it was a wonderful day for the people of Canada when Senator Donna Dasko was appointed to the Senate. Donna is an intelligent, hard-working senator who's made a significant contribution to the collective work of this chamber over 8 years with us. And also, let me emphasize what a decent and delightful human being she is. She came with a distinguished career as one of Canada's best-known pollsters and public opinion researchers with Environics Research Group. She has a PhD from the University of Toronto and later served as a fellow and instructor at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Here in the Senate, she championed Senate reform based on her perspective that appropriate modernization is necessary to maintain and build public confidence in our institution. In her speech on Motion 165, she said, and I quote, "Most Canadians simply want a Senate that is going to work in their best interests, regardless of partisan leaning." End of quote. Senator Dasko has been a fierce defender of the people of Ukraine, championing Ukrainian culture, shining a light on historical examples of tragedy and resilience, speaking about the Holodomor, and standing up for Ukrainian freedom, sovereignty, and democracy in the face of the ongoing illegal and immoral invasion by Russia. Senator Dasko's recent sponsorship of Bill S-214, amending the Special Economic Measures Act, disposal of foreign state assets, is just one example of her tireless efforts. My final remarks will be about how Senator Dasko has worked hard to improve democratic legitimacy and public confidence in our institutions by ensuring the inclusion of women. Those are connected. Before entering the Senate, she co-founded Equal Voice, one of Canada's most influential nonpartisan organizations promoting the election of women to public office, and served as its national chair. She also co-founded the Campaign for an Equal Senate, which advocated for gender parity in the upper chamber. A big success there, Donna. Brava. Throughout her career, she's been involved with LEAF, which works to create gender equality through law, and numerous other initiatives focused on increasing women's political participation. Senator Dasko has spent her career lifting women up. To honor my dear colleague and friend Donna, I will leave you with a quote from the play on Nellie McClung, your sister, and women's suffrage. That play is entitled Nothing Less by Amy McKay and Ken Schwartz. Here's the quote. "Oh, my sisters, rise together. Raise your voices, do not rest. Make your dreams from hope and passion. Set your sights on nothing less." Colleagues, let's honor and thank our colleague, the Honourable Donna Dasko, for always setting her sights on nothing less.
Honourable Senators, I wish to draw your attention to the presence in the gallery of Senator Dasko's children, Marion Adams and Will Adams, her sister Trish Dasko, her brother-in-law Howard Halagaza, and Nick Mitaye, her son-in-law. They are accompanied by other members of her family, as well as staff, friends, and representatives from the Ukrainian Embassy and Ukrainian Canadian Congress. I just wanted to add to my colleagues and welcome you to the Senate of Canada. Senator Dasko.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, colleagues, for your wonderful remarks and tributes, which I cherish and will remember forever. Honourable Senators, it is my turn to say goodbye and to wish the Senate Godspeed on its continuing journey. When I was in Elmwood High School in Winnipeg, no guidance counselor ever suggested that I should study to become a pollster or a senator. It's been my great good fortune to have pursued both of these roles in my professional life. Both are integral parts of Canada's democracy, our public policy, and our politics. Has any freshly appointed senator who has not served in the House of Commons known what to expect on that first walk onto Parliament Hill? The beautiful buildings call out our history. They call out gravitas and purposefulness. Indeed, all these things are present every day. What is not so obvious is that the Senate is a community of senators and staff, of skills and personalities and emotions. And to make it all manageable, there is great dedication, collegiality, and generally good humor. I am so very grateful to all those who make this place work so well through constant demands, changes, and long hours. I want to thank everyone who works here as warmly as I can for all that you do day in and day out for this institution and for people like me and for all Canadians. I also want to thank those staffers over the years who've kept me prepared and in the right place at the right time with the right papers and well briefed. Thank you to Emily Horonowich, Ariana Knuffel, and Dylan Odd. Thank you to Beth Atchison, my policy advisor on all things legal, for your knowledge and steady advice. And for my team here in Ottawa, I say thank you to Tristram Barnes, my policy advisor, for his spirit and positive attitudes, and to Kathy MacDonald, who's been by my side now for 6 years and who has genially juggled all the plates in the air so beautifully over the years. And it's been such a pleasure to work with her on so many things. I also want to acknowledge and thank my 3 ISG leaders over these years. Senator Wu, who first recruited me to the ISG, Senator Saint-Germain, here she is, and Senatrice Monsillon. You have all fostered a positive and inclusive environment and led our group with wisdom and intelligence in good times and through the many challenges we have faced over these years. My family, my daughter Marianne, my son William, have been with me through this incredible journey, always curious and interested in my life in Ottawa, and so proud of their mom as I am so proud of them. And my son-in-law, Nick, who's an indispensable member of our family. Nick, votre calme est très apprécié.
Nick, your calm nature is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Hugs to my sister Trish and my brother-in-law, to my dear friends who are here today, and those back in Toronto, and to my Winnipeg cousins, whom I hope to see very soon. I also recognize members of the Ukrainian community who are here today from the Embassy and from the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Thank you very, very much for being here today. And then my Senate colleagues. I've worked with so many of you over these 8 years on so many interesting pursuits, and I feel I've gotten to know you so well, and what a pleasure that has been. I've made some of my closest friends here, as Paula has just said, and I don't know how I'm going to get along without seeing you over the next period. It's going to be tough. And I think I'm going to have to show up, come back for regular chats, and to make regular visits. So that's my plan. Our work is hard, but ultimately rewarding. Some of my fondest memories are of travels across this country, to Prince Rupert and Terrace to study the contentious ban on oil tankers, which may soon come back as an issue, to New Brunswick and PEI to study the temporary foreign labor force, an issue which remains unresolved. Across the north to study Arctic security, which remains unfinished. To Churchill, Manitoba, my home province, to study its economic potential, where more is to be done. And to Alberta on a tour from south to north, thanks to Senator Tanis. Colleagues, we must reach out to this magnificent province in the coming months as they contemplate the unthinkable separation from Canada. Like many of you, I came to the Senate as an outsider from the public service and Parliament. But in spite of my outsider status, I've been extremely interested in the Senate for many years, going back to the period between the Meech Lake and Charlottetown Accords, when I worked with federal and provincial clients who were trying to keep Canada together by changing the Constitution. And Senate reform figured into everything they came up with. It was always on the table as an initiative. Flash forward to yet another Senate reform effort on the part of Prime Minister Harper, which went to the Supreme Court in 2014 and which I followed very closely. Now I have a confession to make. Something I haven't told anyone till this very day. In 2013, I wrote a letter to Prime Minister Harper suggesting that he appoint me to the Senate. Well, why not, I said to myself. Sadly, I received no acknowledgement whatsoever of my request.
Missed opportunity.
However, another opportunity would soon appear. In 2016, when I fully understood that our new Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was introducing a new model of Senate appointments based on independence and open applications, I realized that my opportunity had arrived. I applied. I was ecstatic to be appointed. I was walking on a cloud, and I came here with enthusiasm and an open mind. It has been an absolute privilege to be a parliamentarian for the last 8 years, since June the 6th, 2018, avec mon frère, the same day, and here he is still beside me. For the last 8 years, since June 16th, 2018, and to participate in this way in the life of Canada and the issues of the day. The new model of the Senate does not alter Canada's formal constitutional provisions for the Senate, but still, in the changes it's made to appointments and the changes the Senate has made and will continue to make as to how we work together, this new model was bound to open a new chapter in the life of the Senate, and it has done so. Of all the efforts to reform the Senate that I have seen in my lifetime, the independent Senate is the only reform which has succeeded. Colleagues, like many of you, I also came to the Senate with a passion for democracy, public policy, and politics. For most of my career, I worked to incorporate the views of Canadians into public policy and communications, as most of my clients were nonpartisan public servants at the federal and provincial levels of government. I always viewed my work as an exercise in democracy, and I undertook this work in the same spirit. I always respected Canadians' views, the diversity of views, even those views I disagreed with. The independent Senate is uniquely able to take the views and beliefs of Canadians into account in our deliberations, given our lack of direction by a partisan caucus. 2 weeks ago in this chamber, our honourable colleague, Senator Batters, stated, and I quote, "We have a responsibility to listen to the views of Canadians on issues we vote on here," she said. I agree entirely with this view. And yet, in my experience here, the views we hear from and engage with are those of stakeholders, interest groups, civil society groups, and experts. We meet with them, we receive correspondence from them, and we invite them to our committees. This is all entirely legitimate, I might add, entirely. But we rarely take into account the views of ordinary Canadians in any systematic way. I tried to do this here by commissioning public opinion research on several areas I was working on, including issues facing women, gun control, support for Ukraine, and of course, the Senate. I encourage senators to do this. It is the essence of democracy to consult Canadians, to consider their views and experiences on public policy issues, and more than that, to understand their beliefs and their underlying values. In my view, the changes to the Senate make it better able to perform its formal constitutional roles and to contribute to the well-being of Canadians. Parliament has been bicameral since its inception, and as such, it's an integral part of our governance system. The Fathers of Confederation sought to balance representation by population in the House of Commons with representation on a regional basis in the Senate, ensuring that the more populous provinces could not simply overrun the interests of the less populous. Over time, and particularly since patriation of the Constitution in 1982 and the addition of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the protection of provincial and territorial minority interests has expanded to include other rights holders, including Indigenous peoples, linguistic minorities, and those groups protected by constitutional equality rights. The Senate is now much more representative of Canada than it has ever been, And in fact, it may be the most representative legislative body in this country. The chamber is now 55% women, ranking as the third highest in the world for women's representation when it comes to upper chambers in the world. That would be us. Compare that to the dismal ranking of our elected chamber over in the other place, which ranks as 71st in the world. Wow. Dismal. We've also seen an increase in Indigenous senators, representing 10% of this chamber, and other appointments reflecting the diversity of Canada. This diversity has affected how we work for the better. We've extended our reach to include a broader and deeper spectrum of views in all of our work. And the Senate has led substantive responses to social movements, including Truth and Reconciliation, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, gender-based violence, and so many others. The single amendment moved last week by Senator Bernard on Bill C-9 and passed in this chamber is one example which proves my point. Whatever the future of appointments to the Senate brings, I think it's essential to the functioning of our democratic institutions and the relationship we have with Canadians that representation of the full population be bedrock, like the granite under our feet. And it's also the basis for my bill S-213, as I believe that government and Parliament and Canada's political parties must find ways to improve representation in the House of Commons, just as we are committed to do so in other federal institutions. The move away from partisan to independent appointments has also enhanced the Senate's ability to fill another core constitutional function, that of providing sober second thought. In two must-read essays prepared in 2018 and 2019, Senator Harder described the new Senate as no longer a rubber stamp to the government and much better able to carry out its role as a complementary body to the elected Parliament. The new Senate, he noted positively, has more vigorously debated legislation, has appended strong observations, and has proposed significantly more amendments to government legislation than previous Senates have done. The new Senate, he concluded, is effective and useful and is producing better public policy outcomes for Canadians. These conclusions are as relevant today as they were 7 years ago. Now, every new senator, including myself, has their start by trying to learn about the core and the reach of the powers that we have accepted to take on in this role. How do we make decisions related to our core legislative responsibilities? Independent senators consider many principles and decide as individuals what weight we will give to them. We have differing views about issues and solutions, sometimes causing strains. We have impatience at the pace of change, sometimes causing tension. Bills that are especially important and subject to time pressures can produce significant hothouse friction. Human nature being what it is easy to add to the sparks. Well, how does one proceed? This is, at heart, a deeply human space which requires deeply human participation and practices. Disagreement is unavoidable but must not become personal. We must be willing problem solvers using our skills and the tools available to us. This is indeed what most of us have done in our other careers before we got here, and we need these skills more than ever in this setting. It is senators who must make this place work. I think we are evolving in a positive direction. We've heard mention of the most recent poll findings on public perceptions of the Senate from this March. The 4 surveys I have commissioned form benchmarks for how Canadian views on the Senate are changing. Still, I was reluctant to commission this latest poll, fearing possibly that the results might be less than positive. But from the NANA surveys we've heard, 8 in 10 Canadians want future governments to continue with the independent Senate. Only 5% want to return to a partisan body where senators sit as members of a political party. And just as important, in my view, the survey shows that positive impressions of the upper chamber outweigh negative views for the first time in a decade of polling. Positive views are inching forward, and if I look at the tea leaves, look deeper into the data, the reason behind that is a growing appreciation of the Senate's role in reviewing legislation and growing awareness that senators work hard. And this applies to all senators, not just independent senators. And this is all very good news. My experience tells me that we have to keep communicating with Canadians and engaging with them about our work. When I arrived here in 2018, the Senate proceedings weren't even televised. Imagine, the other place was televised in 1977. But here, oh no, we have to, we can't be too brash. We've got to be very, very careful about this. This 20th century stuff is pretty doubtful. Never mind the 21st century. Never mind social media. We're back in the previous century. However, well, we installed cameras and began the broadcast of regular Senate sittings in 2019. This is important. This is vital for our transparency as an institution. We have to do this, which in turn is vital for our accountability to Canadians. And by the way, that survey shows that 23% of the public say they have seen the Senate on television at some point. So there we go. We've made great progress in our communications efforts in recent years with conventional media and social media outreach, but senators themselves have to keep telling the story of our work and of our worth. Our evolving and modern Senate, I believe, is contributing to our democracy today in a more vital way than ever. The benefits are more inclusive representation, more scrutiny of government and parliament, and better policy outcomes for Canadians. Colleagues, when we look around the world today, it's clear that democracies face numerous threats. Political polarization divides societies into hostile camps where political differences undermine social relationships and discourage interaction across ideological lines. And this force is growing. Political disinformation is the deliberate creation and spread of false or manipulated information designed to deceive the public and erode trust. It is fueled by advancements such as AI, and this too is growing around the world. Global authoritarianism is expanding, with now approximately 72% of the world's population now living under autocratic or hybrid rule, according to a report from UN Women. And what is also shocking is that our neighbor to the south is at the forefront of democracy's decline, with all of these negative trends in full force. How are such threats to democracy affecting this country? I'll just make one bold generalization based on research. On most dimensions, Canada is doing better than others in dealing with these challenges and in maintaining a healthy democracy, although, of course, there is much more that we can do. So, colleagues, I've always been optimistic about this country. Through mistakes, learnings, and successes, we find ways to live and to prosper together. The Prime Minister said in his moving speech on May the 5th, announcing the appointment of the Honourable Louise Arbour as the 31st Governor-General of Canada, and I quote, that Canada's place in the world is to be a country that lives by certain propositions and helps others to live by them as well. The Senate has embraced this endeavour. Our gaze must not only be inward, since the very nature of our past and our present require us to look and to reach outward as well. The situation closest to my heart is the brutal and unjustified invasion of Ukraine by Russia in 2022. I hope that the Senate will continue to advocate for Ukraine and support Ukraine and contribute to peacemaking around the world. Please, honorable senators, continue this work. My time in the Senate has deepened my confidence in this country and its institutions, its leaders, and in Canadians. In these tumultuous times, I urge the Senate to continue on its path as a strong pillar of our democracy. It will be hard work. It will take a wise mix of bravery and strength. I will miss the Senate, dear colleagues, and I will miss you. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.